Hello and good day to you all. We are from Group 1, where consists of Muhammad Nabil Skika, Prinsita Nabila, Maram Pahlawan, Ardian Fahuzan, and Arpan Maulana. We are going to talk about contingency theory. Contingency theory of leaderships. We are going to divide it into 5 sections. The first is leaders, member exchange, or LMX theory. Second is the normative decision model. Third is the situational leadership model. Fourth, the contingency model. And last but not least is the path to goal theory. Okay, we're going to the first theory about the LMX theory. Fundamentally, LMX argue that leaders do not treat all followers as if they were a uniform group of equals. Rather, the leaders form specific and unique linkage with each subordinate, thus creating a series of dyadic relationships. There has been considerable evolution in leader-member exchange research and thinking in the last 20 years. Early on, the focus on stage of development as the process of the relationship developed over time. These stages typically were described as follow: role-taking and role-making routinization.
Leader-member exchange (LMX) theory. The cycle of leadership making, characteristics, stranger acquaintance and maturity. Relationship building phase, stranger role taking, role making, and then role routinization. Reciprocity, time span of reciprocity, cash and carry immediate, mix some delay, and the maturity is in kind indefinite. Leader-member exchange, stranger low, acquaintance medium, and maturity is high. For incremental influence, stranger none, acquaintance limited, and maturity is almost unlimited. In its earlier form, the vertical dyad linkage model, LMX was one of the simplest of the contingency models. Looking at our leader-follower situation model, it is easy to see that LMX even today is largely about the process of relationship building between the leader and the follower. The situation has barely crept in, and only if we consider this desire to increase organizational effectiveness by maximizing the number of in-groups the leader might develop. The normative decision model. The normative decision model is directed solely at determining how much input subordinates should have in the decision-making process. Precisely because the normative decision model is limited only to decision-making and is not a grand, all-encompassing theory, it is a good model to examine next. Levels of participants is like the other theories in this chapter. The normative decision model was designed to improve some aspects of leadership effectiveness and decision quality. This decision has a rational or objectively determinable better or worse alternative. For decision acceptance implies that followers accept the decision as if it were their own and do not merely comply with the decision. And next is decision tree. The normative decision model. Factor from the normative decision model and the instructional framework. A. Quality requirement for the situation. And then for the leader, does the leader have sufficient information? And C. Is problem structure? And for the followers, D. Acceptance important for implementation. And next, if decision made solely by a leader, will it be accepted by subordinates? And do subordinates share organizational goals? And is conflict over a preferred solution likely? And the outcomes are decision quality, decision acceptance, subordinate development.
The situational leadership model, although Leaders often have a different interactional style when dealing with individuals' followers. Is there an optimum way for leaders to adjust their behavior with different followers and thereby increase their likelihood of success? And if there is, what factor should the leader base with his behavior? The follower's intelligence, personality trait, value, preference, technical competence, a model called situational leadership offer answer to this question. As we can see in the figure 13.4, we can see how the factors in situational leadership fit with the LFS frameworks. In comparison of the from and youth model, there are fewer factors to be considered in each of three elements. The only situational consider is knowledge of task and the only followers factor is readiness. In these situational models, followers' readiness refers to followers' ability and willingness to accomplish a particular task. Decision to use developmental intervention by leaders, first, telling, happen when high task and low responsive by the followers. Selling happen when high task and high relationship with the followers. Participating happen when low task and high relationship with the followers. And delegating happen when low task and low relationship. The important thing that leaders have to know is what is the followers' readiness and what is the task to be accomplished. And from all of this, the outcomes will be task accomplished and increased followers' readiness. The contingency model. Contingency models of leadership is probably the earliest and most well-known contingency theory, and is often perceived by students to be almost the opposite of situational leadership theory. Compared to the contingency model, SLT or situational leadership theory emphasizes flexibility in the leaders' behaviors, whereas the contingency model maintains the leaders are much more consistent in their behavior. The contingency model suggests that leader effectiveness is primarily determined by selecting the right kind of leaders for a certain situation, or changing the situation to fit the particular leader styles. To determine a leader's general style or tendency, Fiedler, the one who expressed this theory, developed an instrument called the Last Preference Coworker or LPC scale. This scale instructs a leader to think of a single individual with whom he had the greatest difficulty working, and then to describe that individual in terms of series of bipolar adjectives. An important variable in the contingency model is situational favorability, which is the amount of control the leader has over the followers. Figure 13.6 explains in contingency model, leaders are first asked to rate an item that measure the strength of leaders' members' relation, the degrees of task structure, and their levels of position powers. These ratings are then weighed and combined to determine an overall level of situational favorability facing the leader. Any particular situation favorability can be plotted on a continuum Fiedler divided into octane representing distinctly different levels of situational favorability. As we can see in figure 13.6, the overall situation favorability rank in octane from 1 to 8. The lower the octanes are, it means it's more favorability. Octanes 1 show the good relation between leaders and members, the structured tasks, and the position powers is high. And if the position power is low, but the task is structured and leaders members relation is good, it becomes to the octane number 2. Octane number 3, high position power, unstructured task, and good leader member relation. Number 4, low position power, task structure unstructured, and leader member relation is good, and so on, as you can see in the figure 13.6. We can attain a clear understanding of contingency model by examining through the LFS frameworks. As shown in the figure 13.8, task structure is a function of the situation, and LPC score are function of the leaders, because position power is not a characteristic of the leaders, but of the situation the leaders find himself or herself in. It is included in the situational circle. Leaders and members relation are joint function of the leaders and the followers. Thus, they belong in the overlapping intersection of the leaders and followers cycle. The outcome from the contingency model can be an effective or ineffective group performance based on match or mismatch between leaders and overall favorability of the leadership situation.
Next, the path goal theory. Path goal theory deals with expectancy, a calculative approach to understanding motivation where people calculate effort to performance probabilities, performance to outcome probabilities, and assign balances or values of outcomes. Theoretically, at least, people are assumed to make these calculations on a rational basis, and the theory can be used to predict what task people will put their energies into, given some finite number of options. Path goal theory uses the same basic assumptions as expectancy theory. At the most fundamental level, the effective leader will provide or ensure the availability of valued rewards for followers or the goals, and then help them find the best way of getting there, the path. So in general, the path goal theory maintains that leader should first assess the situation and select a leadership behavior appropriate to situational demands. By manifesting the appropriate behaviors, leaders can increase followers' effort to performance to reward expectancies, or balances of outcomes, like in the figure 13.10 that is illustrates that similarly, leaders may look at the leadership situations and note that the followers' performance level are not acceptable. The leader may also conclude that the current situation offers a few, if any, incentives for increased performance. Like in this case, the leader may use directive behaviors to increase the value of the rewards or the variance, which in turn will increase followers' effort levels and performance. As shown in the figure 13.11, the components of path goal theory fit nicely into the LFS model. The four leaders' behavior fit into leader circles. The characteristic of the followers fit into the follower circle, and the task and the formal authority system fit into the situation circle. Of all the components of path goal theory, the only mismatch with the LFS model deals with the primary work group. The norms, cohesiveness, size, and stage of development of groups are considered to be part of the followers function in the LFS model, but are part of the situation functions in path goal theory. So in that regard, we hasten to note that we use LFS framework primarily for heuristic purposes. Ultimately, the concepts described in these five theories are sufficient complex and ambiguous that there probably is no right answer in any. Lastly, the conclusion. So the all five models, which is leader member exchange theory, the normative decision model, the situational leadership model, and the contingency model, and last is the path goal theory, are similar in that they specify that leadership should make their behaviors contingent on certain aspects of the followers or the situation to improve leadership's effectiveness. In addition, all five theories implicitly assume that leaders can accurately assess key follower to situational factors. However, it is entirely possible that two leaders in the same situation may reach different conclusions about followers' level of knowledge, the strength of leader-follower relationships, the degree of task structure, or the level of role ambiguity being experienced by followers. These differences in perception could lead these two leaders to reach different conclusions about the situation, which may in turn cause them to take different actions in response to the situation. Furthermore, these actions may be in accordance or in conflict with the prescription of any of these five theories. Also, the fact that leaders Perceptions may have caused them to act in a manner not prescribed by a particular model, may be an underlying reason why these five theories have reported conflicted findings, particularly in field settings. Thank you.
Okay, guys, I think that is all from our materials now. So, if you have any question, please ask in the comment, or if you have any suggestion for us, just put it in the comment. So, see you next time. If we have any problems, or if we not speak clearly about it, we are sorry. So, bye bye.